Welcome to Powering Through Life on the Deepest That Care Network. I'm your host, Teresa Sims, and I'm a transformational life coach, an award-winning author, and a multiple #1 best-selling co-author. Each week on Powering Through Life, my guests and I will discuss a special topic that is close to their heart. Together we will explore the challenges they have faced in life and learn what strategies and tools they have used to power through their lives. So welcome to Powering Through Life.
Today, my guest is a very dear friend of mine, the incredible Kelly Filardo. Kelly is a burn survivor since the age of 2 years old when she was burned over 75% of her body, and she constantly struggled with her self-worth and self-confidence. She found a way to go from near death to success, from the ugly Scarface girl to the top 10 most powerful and influential speakers, Fierce Woman of the Year, an international best-selling author 5 times, mind you, recipient of the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal, and a YWCA Woman of Distinction. Wow, that's incredible. Kelly has been featured on national TV multiple times and has graced the covers of magazines and newspapers around the world. She has also traveled to Africa to help burn survivors recover from their tragic injuries, and the documentary about her life story, Still Beautiful, launched on national TV just this summer. Am I right, Kelly? Or was that earlier?
I think about a year ago.
Oh, for heaven's sake. I lost a year somewhere along the line. And I should know that because I'm actually part of your book, Still Beautiful.
That's right.
Yeah. So, Kelly, welcome to Powering Through Life. I'm so glad we get to do this. And you've been a guest before, so this is like coming home for both of us and just having a conversation.
It is. Well, and I'm very honored that you wanted me to be on your show again, so thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. I love your story. I love the background behind what you do and why you do it, and I think it needs to be told multiple times so more people can hear it. So today our topic is how to persevere in today's demanding world. What a great topic.
It is. I love the topic because, it just came up to me in the last few months that a lot of people always ask me is, how do you do it? Like, how do you keep moving forward in life? And, what makes you keep powering through? Like in today's world, we're expected to be superwomen. And, we're expected to have it all and be it all and do it all. And yet, how do we do that? And so that's why I decided, I'm going to do something about perseverance.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. So would you like to give our listeners a little bit of background behind your story? I mean, I
Sure.
know it, but I want everyone else to know it.
Yeah, that absolutely. So, my story is that I got burnt as a 2-year-old to 75% of my body. We were living on a farm at the time, and my cousins were 9 and 11, and they were throwing shingles in the fire. And a spark came out and landed on my dress, and I blew up. And so I was rushed to the hospital, and I spent 4 months in the hospital. And every 2 days, I would have to go into the operating room for surgery. And then right up until I was 20 years old, I'd be in the hospital every second year because they needed me to grow. And as I would grow, then I would have more skin for them to work with. And so then I would spend a whole month of my summer holidays in the hospital. So I never thought I'd ever get married. I never thought I'd ever have kids. And, I was known as the ugly Scarface girl. So that's the beginning part of my journey.
And it sounds like you didn't really have an average type of summer as a child at all.
No, because every second year I'd be in the hospital, and my birthday was in July.
Oh.
And so I spent, I don't know how many birthdays, probably 2 or 3 of my birthdays in the hospital. And when you're a child, it's bad enough that your birthday's in the summer because it's, hard to get people out for your birthday. But it was even worse, being in the hospital. So yeah, I was always very disappointed the years that my birthday, landed when I would be in the hospital.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you also probably didn't develop really solid friendships either, considering, being away from friends so much, but also with your scars and everything else, being called that name probably didn't lead to having really solid friendships, I would imagine.
Well, I'd have a couple friends, but you're right. And especially because we lived on a farm, too.
Mm-hmm.
You typically don't have very many friends because, you're on the farm. So you can't usually see your friends as much as if you live in the city or in the town. So you're right. I didn't have, as solid friends as before or as I could have. Other than when I was in high school, we got involved in 4-H. And then we had our 4-H family that we hung out with in the summertime. But other than that, you're right. I didn't have a whole lot of friends.
How did that make you feel, Kelly? Like what kind of emotions were you going through, and what did it do to you psychologically?
Well, a lot of it was, I became very shy. So I didn't get involved a lot. If there was a group of people, I wouldn't talk. I was always the shy, quiet girl that didn't talk. And even my high school friends would say, why don't you talk? Like, you get you alone and you can't shut up. But, when you get you into a group, you don't want to talk. And it's interesting because I'm still that way. I'm still that way when I get into a group situation. I'm not the person who does all the talking. I'm usually the one who just sits back and listens. So, growing up, because I always felt like I was the ugly girl, I never did think I would ever get married or have kids. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what my life was going to be like. In fact, when I was 15, I would pray to God and I would say, dear God, please don't make me wake up in the morning. But if I have to, can I at least be scarlet so I can be pretty like all the other girls?
Right.
Thank you, amen.
Yeah.
And so, I just prayed to God, please take my scars away. And I would ask my doctor, please take my scars away. And I still remember when I was about 18, and my mom took me in I didn't know this, but it was going to be my last doctor's appointment with my plastic surgeon. And he said to me, okay, we're done. I'm like, what do you mean we're done? He said, we're done. There's nothing more I can do for you. And I was like, well, what do you mean? I still got scars all over me. And, especially on my face. And my scars have really faded over the years, but when I was a child, they were quite prominent. And so I was, devastated because I'm like, why can't you do one more surgery to take my scars away? And he's just like, we're done. So I was devastated because, I thought I'm going to be the ugly girl forever.
Yeah. Now, were they taking skin grafts, obviously, from you, correct, from another spot of your body?
Right. When I was 2, they did a skin graft from my dad, but what happens is all they do, because you can't get skin from other people, it just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Your body rejects it. So the skin from my dad, they just put it on some of the places where it needed to be protected, and then once it was healed enough, that skin would just slough off.
Right.
So, so I've had tons and tons of skin grafts. And, definitely from my own body.
Wow. So do you have a lot, the area where they were, I'm being nosy, but the area where they were taking the skin grafts from, is there still a lot of healthy skin there? Does it keep regenerating itself enough that it's, Well,
they would harvest my skin, and the skin of my legs and my bum was used 6 times over.
Wow.
So they would use it, use it for a skin graft, and then they would let it heal, and then use it again, and then let it heal, and then they take it from another spot and all that sort of stuff. So so I mean, now I know they can grow skin, so but that would be used on your own body.
Right.
So it's not like they can, go donate skin and then, can be used for another burn survivor.
Right, because it's a living organ, right? It's a living organ,
right.
Tissue. Yeah, So it needs to, like a heart transplant or anything else, it needs to mesh with the person that it's being given to, or it's not going to work. But you've been through so much. You've persevered through so much in your life. And I know you did get married, and you did have 3 lovely children, and that are your source of enjoyment a lot. And we were discussing that earlier, and they're fantastic kids. And so Kelly, how did you persevere through life in today's demanding world? Like, what do you do?
Well, and, it's interesting because, a lot of times people think my story is about my burns and my scars. But in the last 10 years, I believe that my story is really about my transformation of ending my marriage and, going through my divorce and all through that, and becoming a speaker and becoming an author and all these incredible things that I've accomplished over the last 9-10 years. So I believe that that's my biggest transformation. And so how do I persevere? I have a Perseverance toolkit. So if anybody wants that, they can download it. I'll give you guys the number later. But there's multiple things I do. And, one of the things is music. I remember when a guy broke up with me, and I cried for like a day and a half. And I'm like, oh, my God, why am I crying over this guy I've only known for 3 months? Like, this is crazy. What am I crying about? And I realized I was playing this song that I absolutely loved, and it's by Celine Dion. It was like, I Am Your Angel.
Mm-hmm.
And so that song kept me in a place of being depressed and sad. Right. And so I stopped playing that song because I played it over like 100 times, that whole day and a half. And I'm like, this is crazy. This song is like keeping me depressed and down and upset about this guy that, doesn't count in my world. And so I played this song that really empowers me. And, if I play it twice, I'm dancing, right? Like I'm moving, and it completely shifted my brain. Mm-hmm. And so every time I would think of him, I would play that song because I didn't want to stay in that state of being sad and depressed and upset and not be able to work and, cuddled up in bed for no reason. And so when I shifted and played that song 5 times over, it got me out of bed, and it got me doing the things that I always do, and kept me motivated and empowered and strong, and, got me back to where I needed to be.
And that's
another
incredible.
thing that
it is,
and people
the mindset.
Don't realize. Yeah, and people don't realize how powerful music is. But, just think about it. When you listen to a really sad song, what state does that put you into? Mm-hmm. Like, does that make you empowered to go work and be that powerful person that you normally are? No, it doesn't. It physically changes your body. Mm-hmm. So when you listen to that music, I call it my blood-thumping music, and I can't even think about being depressed when I'm listening to that music because it physically will change your brain.
Yeah, there's a chemical shift in the brain when you play something that's upbeat and happy and joyful, and then when you play the opposite, of course it's going to pull you down because that's what it's meant to do, I guess, in a way, right?
That's right.
It's get your emotions.
Exactly. Music is meant to evoke emotions in you. Mm-hmm. And so you get to decide what emotions you want to feel, right? Determined by what music you play. So
exactly.
That is one of my very first, perseverance tools is music. Like, you got to know what music brings you down and what music brings you up. And when you're feeling, really down, go listen to that blood-thumping music that really empowers you. Yeah. And I know sometimes it's really, really hard, but because sometimes we want to stay in that state of depression, but we need to get out of that state of depression so that we can be empowered. For an example, what happened was we were doing the filming for my documentary. And so my director and my camera guy and the sound guy, they had me all mic'd up. They had me ready to go. I was about to say my first word and, do the interview. And all of a sudden I burst into tears. And my director's like, what is going on? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, yes, you do know. What is it? And I was feeling really overwhelmed because all these people were making my dream come true. Yeah. And they were going out of their way to be there for me and support me and give me everything I needed to do a great job. And it just really overwhelmed me. Mm-hmm. And so he's trying to get me to do these power moves and trying to get me to say all these things that would get me out of that state. And finally I thought I was ready, and my camera guy said, no, Cal, go. You need to do something else. What is it you need to do to get you back the way you were? Because I can see it in your eyes that you still want to cry.
Wow.
And so I went and I ran up and down the stairs like 4 or 5 times. I put on my favorite song that I know works for me, and I listened to it for like 5, 6 times. So, and then I was able to go back into it, and I did amazing. But it was because I had to use that music.
Mm-hmm. But you
found... It doesn't allow me to shift or to go back to depression.
Yeah, which is fantastic. I mean, we all need to find that one tool that works for us, right? And it's not just necessarily one. If one doesn't work, go to the next one. So what would be your
Absolutely.
next one? What's your next one, Kelly?
So one of my next tools is also empowering videos.
Okay.
So I spend a lot of time on YouTube listening to empowering speakers. And me being a speaker, I'm always looking for other speakers to listen to. So like Lisa Nichols, Will Smith, Tony Robbins, like all of these guys are people that I listen to. And same thing, you can't stay in a state of depression when you're listening to people who are empowering you.
Exactly. Because it does have a physiological change inside of us.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of my other tools, I love this tool. This one makes everybody laugh. So I realized when I was going through my divorce that every time I saw my ex-husband's name pop up on my phone, whether it was a text message or a phone call or whatever it was, every time I saw his name, I would instantly growl at my phone, and I would shift into being mad and upset. And even if he was trying to be nice to me, I would still shift into that anger mode. And I'd be like, okay, what is going on here? Like, and then it would take me sometimes 2, 3, 4, or 5 hours to get back into being happy.
Oh boy.
And yeah, and even at night, like if he texts me, then I'd be up all night. And I'd be replaying situations over and over in my head. And I'm like, how is this serving me? And it's not, right?
Yep.
And it's like, okay, if I phone him and I tell him what's going on and tell him however it is that I want to say it, he's just going to tell me to F off, right? Because he's already dealt with it and he doesn't really care anymore.
Right.
It's me that's struggling with it. So I figured out I needed to change his name in my phone. And I changed his name to Poor Soul. And I still remember the first time that I saw his name pop up and it said Poor Soul. And I was like, Poor Soul? Who's Poor Soul? And I was, oh, Poor Soul. Ah, Poor Soul's calling. I wonder what's wrong with Poor Soul. Aw. And it wouldn't put me into anger mode. It kept me into a positive state. And then what happened is I realized every time I saw his name, I wouldn't get angry anymore. And I would come to him in a state of compassion instead of a state of anger.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, it was really quite fascinating. Now his name doesn't trigger me anymore, so I was able to change his name back to his name. So it's not Poor Soul anymore. But, yeah, it was quite fascinating when I was realizing. And so that, again, helped me to persevere through my life, because otherwise there'd be times when I would think about him and be awake till like 5 a.m, and then, it'd be a wasted day because I couldn't, function.
Yeah, and it's not because he was doing anything, because it's not really his issue. It was something that you had created and something that you had thrown fuel to. Sorry for the analogy, but and it's just expanded. And our mindset is just so key on how we approach things and how we deal with things and how we face things and whether or not we want to step away from things.
Right, and it's exactly, and we can be very sensitive to words. And so just seeing his name would trigger anger, and I'm like, okay, that's not right. I can't be in this state because I got to talk to people, and I got to be happy when I talk to people, and because I'm a speaker, I should know this stuff. I need to know about this whole mindset stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I changed it to Poor Soul, I was shocked at how physical it was.
Yeah.
I was shocked that I didn't get triggered by anger anymore. It was like, then it was compassion.
And
so,
that's the key. I have a friend of mine that says the key to forgiveness, the key to forgiveness is compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true because, your ex-spouse, wasn't aware that, or maybe wasn't aware that you were having these situations that were popping up, and that his name was a trigger for you. He wasn't aware. It's like when we're abused as children or bullied as children, that when we're adults, like 30, 40 years later, we're still hanging on to that scenario of being bullied, and the person that did it isn't even aware that sometimes they don't even remember what they did or how they did or how they acted or how they treated. But it's such an ingrained thing in yourself that you hang on to it, and it just grows and it becomes a monster inside. And it's just ridiculous that we hang on to things like that. But if we don't have the tools and we don't know how to process it or how to put it away, then it becomes a problem. But that's why I wanted to talk to you so much, because we are getting awesome tools here. Thank you, Kelly.
Well, yeah, and you're totally right about that. And, and the thing is, my name probably triggered anger for him, too.
It could very well be.
But he probably, maybe not so much anymore, but back when we were actually going through a divorce, absolutely, my name triggered anger for him, too. But he didn't know how to change that for himself, right? Whereas I figured out, okay, I have to change.
Yeah.
And I have to handle this for myself. So what can I do? And it's actually, something fascinating that I tell people even when I speak, because a lot of times when I speak to people and they'll say to me, or I'll ask the audience, what do you think I changed his name to? And a lot of times people will say, oh, you probably changed his name to asshole. And I'm like, no, I didn't, because asshole would still trigger anger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anger. I want to feel good about his name.
Yeah.
I don't want to trigger anger. I don't want to trigger negative. I want to trigger positive. So the positive was by calling him Poor Soul and feeling sorry for him.
Yeah. It's totally about changing the energy around each situation and each way that you face something, or something as simple as his name. So change the energy around it, which changes your response to how you approach it. So that's fantastic. And, we all need to find our own ways, and and it's through exploration that you develop these things. You probably didn't know overnight that music was going to work for you, or changing his name, or it was probably through trial and error, I would assume.
Well, it was just something that popped into my head.
Yeah.
Change his name.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what to change his name to. But I just thought, I'm just going to call him Poor Soul. You know, because I was just feeling sorry for him at that time or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But who knows? But I do know that his name doesn't trigger me anymore, too. So, and that was why I also changed it back. And so it's good to know, what those physical things are, so that we can persevere. Because a lot of times we spend so much time in drama land, which is another one of my tools, right? I call the tune the dial. And in this tool, how many times do we focus on drama in our lives instead of focusing on our happy land?
Yeah.
And, you know what it's like. We have all this drama surrounding around things, and it's like, okay, is this going to serve me, or is it going to disempower me?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, what should I focus on? Like, for example, I was on a dating site, and this guy said to me, you know beauty queen, right? And I was like, oh. and I looked at my cell phone like 3 times. Did he really say that?
Oh, my God.
Oh, and he did. And I'm like, oh, my God. He said, you know beauty queen. I'm like, oh, my God. Like, I can't believe the guy wants to get into my pants, and then he goes and says, you know beauty queen.
That's
and I'm
lovely.
like, really?
Yeah.
Like, what a jerk. Right? And I could have easily gone on and on and on about how much of an a-hole he was and a jerk and, you know, how stupid would you, like, why are you being so stupid saying something like this? And I thought, okay, I could easily go into a big texting war with this guy, but why? Because I'm not going to meet this guy. Like, I know that this is not the kind of man for me. And so I said to him, I said, you're right. I am no beauty queen in your eyes. But in my eyes, I'm beautiful, and that's all that matters to me.
There you go.
Right?
Perfect answer.
And then, I know. And so then, you know, you delete, you block the guy, and you never hear from them again, and you go on. And then I got a text message from a guy who does mean something to me, and he says to me, has anybody told you today how special you are? And I went, "Aw, how sweet." Now, a lot of people would just go focus on the drama and, you know, go on and on and on for 4 or 5 hours with this guy that's not going to count in your world. Or should I focus on the guy that made me feel great?
Yeah.
And where should I put my energy? In happy land or drama land?
Yeah, exactly.
And so
it's all about choices,
you know,
right?
It's all about choices. And so the more we focus on drama land, the more drama we get.
Yeah. The more it's created. Yep, for sure.
Yeah, and the more, you know, like the more it builds up, it's like building a fire. You know, when you start with a fire with a couple little logs, it's small, and then as you add more logs to it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So as you add more insult to the drama, it gets bigger and bigger, and it gets harder to put out. Whereas you can put the fire out when it's only a couple logs just by ending the drama right there.
And sometimes it gets so built up out of proportion that we actually lose sight of what the original thing was.
Oh, yeah.
And
absolutely
that's not a good way to live. So Kelly, what 3 tips would you give someone today who is struggling?
One of the tips I would give them is to quit comparing yourself to others. So I find when I would compare myself to, you know, people who are at a higher level than me. So, for example, Rachel Hollis. Okay, so Rachel Hollis is, you know, New York Times best-selling author. She's speaking on stages all over the place with Tony Robbins. She's just like superwoman, doing incredible. And so I was reading her book, and in the book she gave me one piece of advice that I'll never forget. And she said, don't compare your beginning with my middle. So what she means is, I've already been doing this for 10 years. You're just getting started. So don't compare yourself to me.
Yep.
Because I've already been doing this for 10 years. So I've got 10 years on you.
Yep.
So don't compare your beginning with my middle.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good one. Yeah, go back to her beginning and see what she was like then. And she probably made just as many mistakes or wasn't as fluent or whatever as she is right now. So it's all a growth process, right?
Absolutely, and we're all going to go through that, right? You know, and people even say that about me, like, oh my gosh, like, how do you get so many speaking gigs? How do you do all this stuff? And it's like, and then they get upset because they're not where they want to be. And I was like, hold it. I put 9 years into this, building this up to where it is. So, yeah, I have all these credentials, and I'm a multiple TEDx talker, 5-time best-selling author, and, you know, documentary about my life story. I didn't start with that.
No.
I built that up over the past 9 years.
And it's incredible what you've created but the journey that you've been given in this life has taken you to some fascinating places. And
yeah, it has. And it's all because I persevered, and it was all because I didn't give up. It was all because I took one step forward. Yeah. Now, there's many times I wanted to give up. Many times. There's like, why am I in this world? Like, this is way too hard.
Yeah.
Like, life should be easier. And there's times when I didn't want, like, when I wanted to end my life. And it was just like, okay, what is it? What do I need to do? And, you know, when I think about my kids and I think about, you know, Parker, my one son, telling me, I dropped him off at school last year, and And he said, Mom, my friends, they often complain about their mom. And I say, nah, I can't relate to that. I'm proud of my mom. I love her.
Aww.
And I was like, oh.
That's amazing.
And then, I know. And, my other son, Cody, he says to me, he says, Mom, don't you dare ever leave me in this life. You leave me, I'm going to kill you. And I'm like, but I'd be dead already. And he goes, I know, but I'm going to kill you again. You are not allowed to leave me.
Oh, my goodness.
And so, my daughter, her and I have a great relationship too. And so those times when I think about, do I want to end my life or not? And I think about my kids and how much value I provide to them and how they see me as a role model and they see me as a struggling single mom entrepreneur. I mean, I don't have a husband to support me, so I must make money.
Yeah.
And I do whatever it takes, and sometimes it means selling a painting for $100. And I don't really care. That's still $100. That's $100 that I can use to buy groceries or, put into my business or whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
And I will do what it takes.
And by the way, I love your paintings. They are fabulous. They are so, they make me smile because it's the vibrancy, the colors, the girl on the canvas that's smiling, that incredible lit up smile that just jumps through the canvas and just touches my heart and makes me smile. So thank you for your beautiful artwork.
You're very welcome. And that started 4 years ago only because my best friend says to me, Kelly, I see you painting in a huge way, making thousands of dollars. And I was like, you're full of shit. And she's like, no, I'm not. You need to paint. And she wanted to get us to go to a paint night. And I said, nah, I don't want to go to a paint night. I want to go drink wine in your hot tub.
Well, that sounds interesting.
I know, right? Well, I don't have a hot tub, so I'm excited when I get to go in a hot tub. So, so the very next day I saw a painting on Facebook, and I said, I want to learn how to do that. And I went on YouTube, and I found the artist, and I started watching her videos. And then I went to bed because it was nap time. It was 3:00, and at that point in my life, I was really bored with my life and not really wanting to live all the time. And so I said to myself, what does my heart say? And I heard the little whisper say, go paint. And I said, nah, what does my heart say? And then it yelled at me and it said, get up and go paint. And I had won a paint kit the year before, and it had 4 canvases, it had the easel, it had the paint, it had the brushes, it had everything.
Wow.
And so I brought the paint kit up, and I started painting. And I put all 4 canvases up on Facebook, and all these people were commenting and liking them. And one girl said to me, can I buy your painting? And I said, sure. And she said, how much? I said, I don't know. I've only been painting one day. And I didn't know, one day, right? Most artists don't make any money till they die. And I was like, exactly. I don't know. I've only been painting one day. I'm not sure. And I said, but what do you offer? And she says, I'll pay you $150. And I said, okay, sold.
Wow.
And I made $1,000 that 1 week.
Oh,
and I made more money in my painting that month than I did in my speaking business.
Oh, isn't that something? And such a beautiful outlet to express how you feel. And I also know, are you still doing your blankets? Because I know you've turned your paintings into blankets for burn kids. Do you want to talk about that?
And so, I do. I do still have my blanket. So what I did is I found a way to take that painting and put it on a blanket. And then the blanket says, you are loved, you are needed, you are wanted. And so what I do is I go around to different Rotary clubs and service clubs, and I share my story, and I ask them if they will sponsor blankets. And then either I give them back to the Rotary Club, and the Rotary Club then gives them to whoever they want to give them to, or I give them to the children at burn camp. So that way, the kids can feel more loved. And
exactly.
So, yeah.
That's fantastic. I know, I happen to know because I've purchased 2 of your blankets for my granddaughters. So they now have your beautiful paintings on their beds. And yeah, it's fantastic. And I mean, something as simple as just going into your heart and expressing what's inside has not only, made you happy, but also given you a source of income and made other people and children who are burn survivors feel loved and welcome. And that's fantastic, Kelly. Good for you.
That's right. Yeah, and that to me is what love is all about. And I still remember when I was getting the blankets made, because I needed to raise, I think it was $15,000. And so I was thinking, okay, how am I going to do this? Because I don't have $15,000, and I had pre-sold 100 blankets already. So I needed to, I pre-sold 100 blankets or something like that. So I was like, okay, I could take all this money and I could buy those 100 blankets, but what if I take that money and then buy them wholesale and get them made? So I had them manufactured in China, and I had like 100 or 1,500 blankets made. But what I did, I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? Because I don't have enough money to get all 1,500 blankets made. So again, I watched Wayne Dyer's movie, The Shift. And in The Shift, he says, when you do things out of fear, you fail. When you do things out of love, you succeed. And so I said, okay, so I was in fear mode at that point, because I was like, how am I going to get this $15,000 for the blanket? And I started thinking about, well, if I order them from China, I don't even know who these people are. What if they don't give me the blankets? And, then I'm out the money and blah, blah, blah. And so I was completely into fear mode. Yeah. So then I thought about, oh, my God, people want these blankets so that they can give them to people. So, one of my friends wants one of these blankets because his mom has cancer, and he wants her to have a daily reminder that, he loves her, and she lives in Cochrane and he lives in Calgary, and then another person wanted a blanket because she lives in Calgary and her friend is suicidal, and it's so bad that they're doing, intervention on her, and she wants one of the blankets delivered to her so that she can show her friend that she's loved, needed, and wanted. Wow. And all of a sudden, and then I thought, what about those 100 kids that I could give blankets to at, burn camp? And these kids will have a daily reminder that they're loved, needed, and wanted. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it was like, oh, my gosh, I have to find this money because I have to help these people feel loved. And it had nothing to do with my artwork or anything. It was all about how can I help these people feel loved. Yeah. And one thing I know about stress is that there's 2 different kinds of stress. There's stress that debilitates you. Is that the right word? Yes. It's like it harms you and it stops you. And then there's stress that motivates you. And the motivating stress is the kind of stress that will give you that courage and the bravery that you need to call those people and ask them for help. And so what happened is it motivated me to talk to people that I would never talk to and ask them to invest in my blankets.
There's that change in mindset again, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It was all about my mindset.
Yeah.
And when I changed my mindset and I said, okay, I know, this guy said to me that he would gladly help me in any way. And I phoned him and I told him what I was doing. And he wanted, okay, give me a proposal of what you're doing. And I told him, gave him the proposal, and he said, okay, come pick up the check.
Wow. Wow. Oh, that's a miracle waiting to happen, right? That was just absolutely perfect.
It is. And again, it was just because, I found a way to get motivated to do it. Yeah. And I didn't let the fear stop me. And that's the problem is a lot of times we just let fear stop us from doing whatever we want to do. And that was the beautiful thing about him. He didn't even want interest on the money or anything. And he just wanted to be able to help and make a difference.
That's incredible. And, when we allow fear to get in our way, and the worst thing that we can hear is the word no. But the word no doesn't mean it's finished or it's ended. That just means not right now, or not with that particular person, or that we need to tweak our proposal a little bit more and just keep going.
Right.
Because no should not stop us. It should motivate us.
Exactly. And a lot of times we're so scared of that word no, but you're totally right. It, it just means not right now, or it's not the right person. And a lot of times it's just the universe telling us, nope, not that person. I want you to go to somebody else.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And that's what happened with me. I talked to one guy and it wasn't working. The money wasn't coming together with him as easily as I wanted it to. And I just thought, okay, no problem. He's not the right guy. I asked another guy and he said, yes, come pick up the truck tomorrow.
Isn't that something? When you're meeting with people like that and you're approaching someone like that, you really need to get a gut feel of and listen to your gut, whether this is the right one, whether this isn't quite the right one, whether there's someone else out there that can actually do what we need and help us with what we need to, accomplish. And it's all about trusting in ourselves, listening to ourselves, and not being afraid. Definitely not being afraid, right? So we got we sidetracked on the 3 tips. So the first one was to quit comparing yourself. What would the second one be, Kelly?
Oh, gosh. That was the big thing. Okay, the second tip would just be follow your dreams. Mm-hmm. So if you want something, just do it.
Yeah. Do
whatever it takes. And, like when I want something really badly, I'll make it happen. Yeah. And, you saw it, Teresa, even with our book launch, right? It was like we wanted to be a best-selling book, and we did whatever it took to make that happen.
We did, even though I couldn't get on the Facebook Live with you at the time.
I know. We struggled with that, but we still, found a way to make things happen, and we just did it.
Yeah, and it's an incredible book, Kelly. Thank you so much for putting that together and for allowing me
you're very welcome. It is. It is a great book. I get so many compliments on it, and people are saying they just love all the stories. And I was so glad that I opened it up to have other authors in the book, because it just makes the book, so much more comprehensive and,
absolutely,
other different points of view. So, to me, just do it. Ask for help, because a lot of times people think asking for help is a sign of weakness, but it's not. To me, it's a sign of strength, because
absolutely,
you know what your weaknesses are and you know what your strengths are. And so when you ask for help, that means you're admitting to yourself that you aren't the expert in that and that you need to find the person who is.
Right. And it's a very courageous move to ask for help, I think.
It is. And it was hard for me to ask people to be authors in my book, right? Because I knew that there was also a financial investment into it. And so that was hard. It's not easy to go and ask people, hey, do you want to, be in my book, and this is how much it's going to cost you? And that was the first time that I've actually charged people to be in my book. I've always, all my other books, I've always done, people just did it for free. Yeah. But this time I decided, no, I've got a documentary coming out, and there's going to be some exposure, and so it's worth some money. And so my coach said to me, Kel, you should be charging to be in this book.
Yeah.
And then I realized what other people were doing with their books, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay, makes sense. They're charging, and they're charging, and they're charging, so why shouldn't I?
Well, I don't see why not. A book, putting together a book, as we both know, is a huge project, and it is time consuming. It's your time is valuable, and the author's time is valuable. So why not? And then they've got the author has an investment, or the co-author, has an investment in the project as well. And I'm so honored that I got to do it with you. I'm so proud of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm honored that you wanted to be in the book. So you got a great story.
Oh, thanks. Wouldn't miss it for the world, Kelly. It was perfect timing for me to tell that side of my story. But so would the third tip be to ask for help?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, sometimes people think that's just a small little tip, but asking for help is, like I said, a sign of strength. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is people want to help.
Yeah.
You know, like I put it up on Facebook. I was looking for an assistant to come with me to an event I was doing in Calgary, and I needed somebody, you know, to help sell books and T-shirts and the hoodies and blankets. And so I needed somebody there. Mm-hmm. And so I put it up on Facebook, and I, like, in 5 minutes, I had like 10 people saying, I'll help.
Wow.
And the girl that I had help me, she's now a client of mine, but she's like, I'm honored to help. Like, I want this experience. I want to know what it's like to be at an event with 400 people. And what is it that you do? And they want to get immersed into that world so that they can decide if that's the world they want to be in or not.
Exactly. And that person came into your world for a specific reason at that specific time because they needed something, right. And so did you.
Exactly. And so to me, it wasn't that I was being weak. It was me saying, I need help. And so many people have said to me, Kel, if you ever need help, call me. And a lot of times I forget who those people are. So that's why I'll put it on Facebook and see, you know, who responds and go from there.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, many times I've had problems solved just by asking for help.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times we don't need to be the ones that have the answer to everything.
Well, I think as women, as entrepreneurs, as moms, we just assume we're supposed to do it all, and we're supposed to do it all alone, and we're supposed to look pretty awesome while we're doing it and look like it doesn't faze us and all this other dream scenario stuff. That's not reality. It's really not reality. Yeah, because
you're totally right. And we're supposed to be super women.
Yeah, but we get tired, and then we forget who we are, and we forget what our purpose is, and we get beaten down, and then we lose track of what we're supposed to be doing, and our energy shifts, our mindset shifts, and then we're in a bad cycle, and all because, in a lot of cases, we're afraid to ask for help. But all we need to do is reach out like you did, and it's so simple. Yeah.
It is.
Well, Kelly,
it's so simple.
Thank you so much. I mean, when I put up your segment, I'm going to have all your links included, and I think it's a perfect time to share your links for your paintings and your blankets as well, because it's upcoming Christmas time. And if you're looking for that very, very special gift that would tell someone that they're loved and needed and wanted, I think your blankets are perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. They can just go to my website, kellyfalardo.com, or they can go to blanketsforburnkids.com. But I also have a free gift for people. So if they want my full Perseverance toolkit, what they can do is they can text the word info to this number, and it's 1-877-414-1768.
Perfect.
And if they text the word info to that, then they will get my Perseverance toolkit. They'll also get my coaching programs, like access to that. So if they want to book a 10-minute call with me, a free call, they can. And, so they can get that all at that number.
That's perfect. So you will send me that number again, Kelly, and then we'll make sure that we've got everything put up so that people can get in touch with you, contact you, get a hold of your toolkit, and start practicing. I think that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you, my dear.
You're very welcome.
Oh, I'm so glad we got to do this again today. This is fantastic. So, Kelly, thank you again. You've been an incredible guest.
You're very welcome.
And we're going to do it for a third time, my dear. We need to do this again.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Kelly.
Good.
Yeah, Diva.
You're very welcome, and thank you.
You're awesome. Thanks, Kel. So that brings to a close another great, inspiring interview on Powering Through Life. And I really want to thank my special guest, Kelly Falardo, for sharing her thoughts and wisdoms with our listeners today. And like I said, if you want to get in touch with Kelly, and please do, because she put out a special link for you there, get in touch with her, find out what she's all about, explore every aspect that she has, her books, her video, her TV documentary, her speaking, her coaching, all of it. Get in touch with her today, and you will not be sorry.
Well, Divas, that brings to a close another great, inspiring interview on Powering Through Life. Thank you to my incredible guest for sharing your story with us. Divas, if you would like to connect with my guests, just go to divasthatcare.com, click on my picture at the top, that's Teresa Sims, and there you can access all of my interviews. Don't be shy, reach out if you have any questions, or simply just leave us a comment. Also, you can contact me at my website, that's teresasims.com. Thank you for listening to Powering Through Life on the Divas That Care Network.